You're listening to the Building and Branding Podcast, brought to you by Virtual Vision. I'm your host, Amanda Stichter. On this show, I sit down with experts in the restoration and home services industry to hear their stories of how they built their businesses to succeed and stand out. Our conversations will uncover the challenges they've faced, the strategies they've employed, and the pivotal moments that defined their paths. We'll also dive into the critical importance of branding and marketing in this field, sharing insights on how to create a compelling brand that resonates with customers and stands out in a competitive market. Join us as we blend practical advice with inspiring real-life stories, providing you the tools and motivation to craft precision and build a lasting brand. Welcome to Building and Branding. Let's get started. In this episode of Building and Branding.
And just like a friend said on my first day in the industry, he said, "Kid, I hope you like what you're doing because you're not likely to leave." And here I am many years later. I usually tell people that the what you want to get you started, the why you want it will enhance your chances of achieving what you want. People talk a lot about work-life balance. I don't believe in the word balance. I believe in practice what I call work-life integration. My business life fuels my personal life, and my personal life gets fueled by business.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Building and Branding Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda, and I'm really excited for today's episode. I am joined by someone who has had very high recommendations to me by many in the home services and restoration industry. Today, I am joined by Richelle Mordecai. Welcome, Richelle.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear more about your story and have you kind of share some tidbits of wisdom with our listeners today. So if you could just start, give me like high level, who you are, what you do, what kind of expertise you bring that we're going to dive into today.
It's awesome. That's a loaded question when people ask me like, who are you? What do you do? I'm like, it's more like, what don't I do? A friend of mine calls me jack of all trades, master of some, because I am an empowerment coach. I'm an author of a personality assessment system with the goal of having people enhance their levels of productivity and performance and satisfaction in life. And that ties to sales, which is what I have been doing way before what I knew I was doing was sales. I started selling pottery when I was 10 years old. Another friend of mine, childhood friend, reminded me that playing Barbies with me was more like, let's host a fashion show and charge people to attend the fashion show and to bring their Barbies into the show. So it's just funny because that all those experiences, I really believe that we are the sum of our life experiences, and I'm no different than anyone on that. Years later, I've been in sales, officially open, this first official business as a 17-year-old in direct sales. By the time I was 18, this was in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. At the age of 18, I was introduced to Jim Rohn, the father of personal development, who trained Tony Robbins, and I trained with them personally. And by 19, I was already training audiences in sales of over 5,000 people. So that was really, really exciting. But fast forward years later, coming to America, doing, the corporate work and all of that, I was recruited by a company in the restoration industry segment. And funny enough, I was brought in by that company because my educational background in university was fashion and marketing, and that company was a textile cleaning restoration.
Oh, sure.
So I could tell a real Louis Vuitton from the various levels of counterfeit. So that's kind of how I joined the industry. And what I've learned about the home service industry is, being the core of America with people that want to make a difference in the marketplace and make a living, is that once you join this segment, you become one of the very few people that speaks a very unique language. And just like
Mm.
a friend said on my first day in the industry, he said, "Kid, I hope you like what you're doing because you're not likely to leave." And every year he goes on my Facebook and reminds me of what he said, that I was not going to leave. And here I am many years later. But that just goes to say that there is power in being part of an industry that is recession resilient. And
Mm.
there's power in learning how to work and provide a service that is needed. And
Mm.
yeah, I couldn't be happier with my decision to be part of something that really makes a difference. And it's the heart of America.
It really is. It is such a unique industry too. I've had so many people who have, either listened to the podcast or even just family members say, I don't understand. What is the restoration industry? Which it is until you find yourself in an experience where you need restoration, like you need an expert in that. It's one of those hidden industries. But
Nobody
you're
knows about it.
Exactly. But you hit it on the head that once you are welcomed into this, I always say, like, it is a small industry with a very big impact. Once you get into it, you just like fold in, you become part of this restoration family, and suddenly it's yours, and you're like, I can't imagine not
Two
being.
decades later. Yeah, 2 decades later. But one thing that I find fascinating about the industry as it pertains to everyday life and the development of human beings is what I've learned, that it's in life and in business, it's way more cost effective and emotionally effective too to restore than to replace, right?
Mm,
And I have had conversations with friends that were going through a tough spot in their relationship. And I'm like, look, believe me, it's better to try to restore than to replace, because at least you know
yeah.
what you're dealing with, right? So I
Yeah.
think that there's so many nuggets that I've learned along the way of being part of this industry that has helped me in personal relationships as well, that led me
Mm,
to write books on understanding the individual and motivating people and getting people inspired to do something different. But you are absolutely correct. And especially for me, coming from Brazil, where you see mold, you spray Clorox. Houses are not made out of paper, so they are not likely to catch on fire the way they do here in the US. I had no idea that this was actually a thing. But
sure.
then I find out that it's not just me coming from Brazil. A lot of people have no idea that this is a thing until they experience a
Right.
loss, which is once every 10 years that a homeowner
Right.
will experience a property loss.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an incredible journey. And you like, oh, I was jotting down some notes of little like tidbits of wisdom that you shared in there that I hope to dive into. But what a story at such a young age to find yourself in front of so many people, influencing them and really just taking ownership of your influence on those people. And I love that you brought up the fact that even from such a young, like as a kid, you're like building this naturally ingrained skill in you to sell, to motivate, to bring something beyond just playing with Barbies, but oh, let's have a fashion show. Let's charge for that. I laugh because I 100% did that too.
It's
And
awesome. We should
it
have been friends when we were young, but I'm much older than you.
right.
I don't know how that would have worked. But anyhow,
um so I love that you really, looking back now, are able to recognize those moments as a part of even your childhood stories that led to where you are today. One of the things that I always like to dig into is I think so many people, when they find themselves in this position, they've built themselves a brand and built themselves really like this expert position in something. There was a moment at some point in your journey where like maybe a light bulb came on and you had that passion of like, I want to do this for the rest of my life moving forward. What was that like for you, 17, 18, 19-year-old you in front of thousands of people as an audience to like, did you have that surreal moment of, I can't believe I'm doing this? Or did it just feel so natural to you?
That's such an amazing question. Looking back, understanding what I know about personalities right now and what drives people. I've always wanted to be famous. I didn't know what that
Mm,
was like or what that was going to be, but I always wanted to. When I say famous, I wanted to make a big impact because with my personality type, as I share in my trainings and in my book, my goal always has to be a vision, a compelling vision of the
mm,
future of who I'm going to be and what I'm going to get. And what fuels that goal, or what the elements that are needed to take me from the present towards that goal from my
mm.
personality type, is power, prestige, and profit. And that key element of prestige, of being recognized for something, was always there. I just didn't know what that meant. So it's amazing that right now I can look back and say those things were always there. I just didn't know how to word them and package them in a way that I could explain myself, right? Because being a
Sure.
visionary is a very lonely road.
Mm.
You live in the future, and when you share with people what's going on in your head, they think you're crazy. So, a great way to make friends in junior high and high school. But, but what's funny about that is it's understanding. I think that for me was really the understanding that sales is such a powerful career choice that many people have written off because of the um, maybe their lack of understanding
Sure.
and prestige associated with sales, because sales is really the only career where you can make as much money as you want at
Hmm.
any given time. And I
Hmm.
remember one of my mentors when I was 17, 18 years old, he said, you can retail yourself out of any problems you have. And I have
Hmm.
lived that. I have lived, having to replace a part in my car and selling a product to the wife of the mechanic and being able to take care of things. I have seen how sales was really the only place where I could make as much as I wanted. But then, and that was at the very basic level of sales. And then I understood what sales actually is, which is your ability to communicate your message in a way that's going to leave you with an agreement, meaning you're going to get people to see what you see, and that's sales, the power to influence, motivate, inspire, and obtain agreements, the shake hands of, yes, this is a good idea. To the point that when people right now tell me I hate sales, sometimes I have to be careful with my response, because at sometimes I have said, well, no wonder you're still single. No wonder you still have the job you have, because everything is sales, and our
Right.
ability to project ideas in a way that people will want to work with us. So when we bring this back to the home industry, the home service industry, I think that the biggest challenge is that, like with any business, people tend to open businesses because they are good at that particular skill,
Mm-hmm.
but they suck at making the phone ring. And what I tell all of my clients is, you needed to operate a sales driven organization first. So when people ask you, what do you do? I sell. This is
Mm-hmm.
the product that I deliver, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this inability to sell that I see in our industry is the main challenge or pain point that people experience, because they are great at bringing a house back to property, to previous conditions or pre-loss condition, but they are very bad at making the phone ring. They are
Right.
very bad at converting a call to a scheduled appointment. They are
Right.
very bad at getting over there and signing the contract. They struggle with upselling because they don't know how to sell. They know how to do the
Right.
technical work. And then we see that happens because their team and individuals as a whole have not mastered the art of effective communication, which
Mm.
is what sales is,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that you brought that up because something that I tend to get on a soapbox about, maybe far too often, but that I get very passionate about, is understanding that realistically in our industry, it's a very commoditized industry. All
Mm-hmm.
the companies at its core are providing the same services to their
Mm-hmm.
customer. And they started, just like you said, because they provided that well. However, the companies that you see really succeed are the ones that understand how to communicate who they are beyond their services, how to communicate their selling points to their customers. And for me, that always directly relates into the concept of your business is so much more than what you're offering. There's a foundational brand of what you are doing, why you got into it in the first place. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it sounds very simple to say, well, I'm good at sucking water. Well, great. So is your competitor. But why actually should a customer choose you in that moment of extreme loss in their life? There has to be something that your business stands on underneath those services. Otherwise, it's just quicksand.
I agree, but I also believe that there's a point to be analyzed before that, which
Mm,
is people usually talk about sales pitch. What's the pitch? What's the pitch? And I
right.
tell everybody, this is not baseball. And coming from Brazil, I don't understand the concept of going around. And that's why I think that a pitch comes from is this idea of going around without understanding where your prospect is coming from.
Yeah.
What I coach people on is you prospect before you propose,
Mm,
right? That's why we date before the will you marry me question. We prospect before we propose. So when people master the art of prospecting, and I'm going to break them down into three categories here that are important for prospecting. You can prospect anybody about anything.
mm-hmm.
The first question on prospecting is process as it pertains to what you're offering or you're trying to talk to, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is it like when? So if I'm an owner of a restoration company and I am prospecting an insurance agent, for example, because I want to get their business, I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to ask them, what is it like for you when one of your clients reports some type of property damage?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm prospecting a homeowner when I'm over there and about to get the signature, I ask them, what do you know about what we are here to do?
Mm-hmm.
What is your understanding as a policyholder about your responsibilities with your carrier as it pertains to bringing your house back to pre-loss condition?
Right.
Now, if I'm prospecting for dating, right, I'm happily married, but you get the concept. What is it like for you when you are looking for a girlfriend, a boyfriend? What is it like for
Right.
you? What are you looking for? That is what I call process as it pertains to what we do, right?
Mm.
Which will in business eliminate a lot of times the question of who is the decision maker, right?
Yeah.
Which is a horrible question to ask. Because if
Yes.
I talk to a property manager and I'm like, what's it like for you when one of your units has some kind of property damage? And they say, well, I talked to Bob. Who's Bob? My head of maintenance. Cool. What can you tell me about Bob? What would
Right.
I have to do to be introduced to Bob? What is Bob like? Right? So I
Yeah.
asked that question about process as it pertains to what I'm trying to discuss. And that
Mm.
is why I sometimes hear people say, oh, I'm going to talk to a dentist. And I'm like, why? Well, they can experience a property loss over there. Water damage. I said, fantastic. Next time you go in for a root canal, I want you to ask him, hey, Mr. Doctor, Mr. Dentist, what would you do if there's ever a water damage here? And I can tell you what he's going to answer. He would call his office manager, who is likely to call property manager or plumber. And that's why
Right.
you don't talk to him. You talk to the property manager or the plumber.
Exactly.
Right. So that is the first question on prospecting. The second one is volume. How often does this happen?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And the third category is what would I have to do or offer in exchange for?
Yeah.
Which is so amazing because I
Mm.
was talking to a friend who is back in the dating scene and I'm like, you need to prospect before proposing. And here are the three categories of questions you're going to be asking.
Yeah.
Right? So then we go back to an industry that is very service driven in terms of operations
Mm-hmm.
and very weak in sales.
Mm-hmm.
But if we look at society as a whole, many companies struggle with the same thing
Mm-hmm.
because people don't want to be in sales.
Hey, listeners, we've got some exciting news for you from one of our sponsors.
If you're in the restoration industry and looking to gain a strategic edge, you won't want to miss the upcoming Rebuild Conference, brought to you by Business Mentors. This isn't just another industry event. Rebuild is the Restoration Technology Conference. It's designed to bridge the gap in the tech revolution facing our industry, providing focused education and an interactive all-in-one trade show. You'll have the opportunity to connect with top technology players and explore the best solutions for your business. Here's what you can look forward to. All the best tech and digital companies and platforms in the industry, all in one place. Keynote speakers and sessions that are dedicated to benefiting your business. A partnership with Know-How ensures clear and actionable takeaways from every keynote and workshop session. An interactive trade show floor where you can get hands-on with the latest technology. This is the first event of its kind in our industry, changing the way we approach trade shows and technology and restoration. Register now through August 15th to save $300 on your registration. So don't wait. Secure your spot today and take the first step towards transforming your business. For more information and to register, visit rebuildconference.io. That's rebuildconference.io, October 28th through the 30th in San Antonio, Texas. See you there.
So then we go back to an industry that is very service driven in terms of operations and very weak in sales. But if we look at society as a whole, many companies struggle with the same thing because people don't want to be in sales. So the first challenge is getting people to understand that sales is any conversation a person A has with a person B, where they start with a purpose and they want to drive some type of results. Right?
Yes.
That changes the mentality. And then training people for that, because I honestly believe that sales is an art that has to be developed by training.
Absolutely.
And people are not trained at it. Therefore, they don't know how to do it and they don't get the results they want. And then they say, I don't like sales, because they don't know what sales is and they don't know how to go about doing sales.
At the very beginning, and I think that kind of brings it full circle, when you first started, you talked about this concept of people not really understanding what sales is, because there is often, at least for me, when I think of like someone is a salesperson, the first picture that comes to my mind is what was ingrained in me as a child of like a used car salesman. But not in a good way. Like society presents a salesperson 9 times out of 10 from a young age as this person who is trying to manipulate you, is trying to work their agenda into their conversation versus actually solving the solution or solving the problem that customer is having. But I like that you took a step back and understanding, and what you just mentioned, that sales isn't always necessarily an exchange even of money, because you talked about it in terms of even, a relationship, and sales is involved in every communication that we have with someone, because we're all looking for a starting point and an ending point. So it does apply. Like these concepts can apply. And I love that, because when we look at the overall concept of our life and what we're doing in business, it's really easy to get stuck in a box of, well, I do sales. But what about your customer success managers? What about, they might not be directly exchanging the money in the product, but they are still, in essence, selling a solution every time they have a conversation with a customer or a homeowner or something along those lines. Have you found that that's been hard for people to grasp and sort of change their understanding of sales?
There has been challenges, and there will always be, because we as individuals, we tend to see life from the lenses that best fit us and that we have been used to. But like with anything, I also personally prospect before I propose. And I
Right.
ask people, what is it like for you, to communicate with your customers? What have you been experiencing in terms of satisfaction of your employees? What is
Mm-hmm.
the retention like for you? And I ask questions that get them to say, oh yeah, this is a struggle of mine. And I'm like, okay, I have a 2-month sales boot camp that will help you with that, and that will help turn your team into a sales driven organization. And when you
Mm-hmm.
do that, you're going to see the success of satisfaction of people to stay in the
Mm-hmm.
team, um, better, increase of leads coming to you,
Mm-hmm.
more conversions of jobs, and overall productivity, which is what I teach in my training, because it comes from my second book, What's Your Fuel, where I introduce participants to the concept of emotional fuel as the substance which is essential to produce an individual's drive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's based on their primary personality in order to increase satisfaction and performance. So
Mm-hmm.
I shared with you that my goal for my personality is a vision. I'm a visionary, but my fuel to take me from where I am towards that goal is the power, precision, profit. Some
Mm-hmm.
people are not like that. Some people, their goal is more of a dream, and it's more fluid, and they need recreation, recognition, and reward as the fuel for that. And that
Sure.
impacts how we talk to individuals, because every personality type has this very unique language that they understand, in a sense. And
Mm-hmm.
that is what's going to help us to drive or influence behavior. And that is powerful because,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, I was also raised in a society that thinks of sales as the person that's knocking on your door when you're sitting down to have
Right.
dinner with the family. And that's why a neighbor in my neighborhood has a big sign on her door that says, "Love my knives, my vacuum works great," and all of that. I've already accepted my savior. But the idea is that's what people believe sales is.
Right.
But that is also an adjustment that has to be made. So when I ask people, how's business? What do you like about your business? What is your biggest struggle right now? It all has to, the root of their problems is their inability to sell one way or another, selling themselves as a company to attract good employees,
Mm-hmm.
selling themselves out there in the marketplace to get leads, especially when
Mm-hmm.
we talk about the lifetime value associated with relationship leads,
Right.
to sell themselves to schedule an appointment when people are just shopping around,
Right.
to get the job signed, to get the customer to want to agree to the next steps. So asking those prospecting questions to nudge their behavior and helping them to see that has made a difference. But in an industry where we have ops certifications, but we don't have sales certifications that are
Mm-hmm.
mandatory, right? Only the best are choosing to embrace this concept. And there are some big name, brand name companies that have me on retainer to be the sales trainer for their whole organizations. Why? Because they believe that this is what's going to take them from where they are to where
Mm-hmm.
they want to go. And they are already tracking the success of people within that organization that have taken my sales training versus
Mm-hmm.
people who have not taken the sales training. And that's
Right.
fascinating.
So dive into that just a little bit for me. Talk to me about what it looks like when you come into a company and you get the opportunity to work and function in your sales training, because that's what your business, Sales Booster Solutions, provides. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, what does that process actually look like?
So I have different services that I do. So first we need to understand my background. I have done the work of a business development manager, meaning I was responsible for making the phone ring. At one point, I acted as a partner at a restoration company. I am on a different one that's happening, that's just getting kicked off right now. I have worked in the corporate level of a franchisor, and I
Hmm.
understand the laws and regulations that prohibits franchisors' representatives from acting as a consultant.
Sure.
And because I understand that, that is why I'm a consultant right now. Because when
Mm-hmm.
people come in, I can act as their sales manager, as their sales coach. But
Mm-hmm.
to sum it all up, what do? I help them to become sales driven. How do we do that? By understanding that every person within the company has a sales role that they have to play. And organizing and structuring that in a way and in a manner where people know what is expected of them. We know how to celebrate their successes through a scorecard. We know when to mitigate their results. We know when to replace an individual from a position or that position from an individual and give that responsibility to somebody else because we needed to increase duplication. So to answer your question, how do we go about doing that? By asking questions to understand what the need is. So right before we got on a call right now, somebody said, okay, Richelle, but what would consulting with you look like? And I said, like I mentioned to you, your gateway to working with me is to take my 8-hour training. That 8-hour training will give you the fundamentals of working with me when it comes to restoration, sales, and marketing.
Sure.
You will consult with me, and from that point on, we will identify your needs so that we can work one project at a time. Because it's not a one size fits all. There are similar needs and challenges that most restoration owners deal with, that some plumbers deal with. But in reality, I operate very much as a boutique style consultant where I understand the need, I fulfill that need, and I make adjustments to some of the perspectives. So in the beginning of the year, my main job was to work on people's sales forecast. And I got to find out that most people that came to me for a sales forecast consultation did not have a sales forecast. They had a sales wish at best, but they didn't have a process attached to that. They didn't have data that they could look at. Okay, so now we have to look at the data, right? So that's kind of how this whole process works.
Wow. It is obvious to me, obviously I went into this, really, this is the first time we've had the opportunity to chat. And like I started this podcast with, you came at such an incredible recommendation from so many people. And I can see why. It is evident that you are able to step in and see that vision beyond just the tunnel view of where a company is at or where a person is at in this moment. So I appreciate that you mentioned that phrase, one size does not fit all. It is really a boutique style in the way you're approaching those issues with the companies that you work with. Before we end our time, I want to ask you 2 questions. The first is, if someone is at a point in their journey where they can see the tunnel that's in front of them, maybe feels slightly stuck of the position that they're in, what words of advice would you give for them?
First is to go back to why they started with their business to begin with. I usually tell people that the what you want gets you started. The why you want it will enhance your chances of achieving what you want. Right. And a lot of times people lose track of and lose sight of why they started on this journey to begin with. The second advice that I will give to them is be careful with who you listen to. I share with people that there's only 3 types of people that we should listen to or take advice from. First are the ones who have what we want, because from those we're going to get that inspiration, which for me is a combination of motivation and information, the recipe, the consultants, the coaches, right? You might choose to listen to the people who had what you want and lost it to learn what not to do, right? And the third group is the people who want what you want. From those, you're going to get your collaboration, because the journey of entrepreneurship is a challenging one. And having like-minded people around you who are going through the same struggles can provide such a comforting space of I'm not on this alone. So from the first group, you get the inspiration. The second group, you get education of what not to do. And the third group, the collaboration. So that's what I would tell somebody who is stuck, and really focusing on paying the price that's needed to get the information that they need. And a lot of times I think that that's a struggle for people, because they think, well, I'm part of this forum on Facebook or this group and that group, and therefore I'm going to learn everything. Well, that is why a lot of people choose to partner with a franchise system because they are
Right.
looking for information, right? They choose a consultant like myself because they want information. And those are
Hmm.
people that are investing on their business. So if you're stuck, you need to find somebody who has what you want and find out the formula and follow that.
Hmm. The other question is a little bit more personal.
Okay.
So you mentioned that you are happily married. You've shared with me that you do have children, but you're obviously a very successful businesswoman. What I have seen in my experience in this industry is there is a cost to working in an industry that is so emergency based and takes a lot of time. And I personally have seen many that have entered this industry leave with a loss of a family relationship or the cost of what it looks like to balance a personal life and this vision for what you would like your future to be and where you're focusing on your career. How do you balance that? And what advice do you give someone in how to balance that to keep all sides of it healthy?
Another great question. People talk a lot about work-life balance. I don't
Hmm.
believe in the word balance. It's not part of my personality. I believe and practice what I call work-life integration. And that
Mm,
is when my business life fuels my personal life and my personal life gets fueled by business. So I'll give you an example. On the 1st of January this year, I had to go to Florida because I had to do several trainings and the kids wanted to go to Universal Studios.
hmm.
Well, while we are online, nobody complains that mom is on the phone.
Right.
There's no complaint about that because the reason why we're able to do this on a regular weekday is because I need to carve out time to do what I need to do. At the same
Right.
time, when I finished the training, I went and had dinner with my family and took my family with me. Now, I
Hmm.
know that that is not possible in a lot of instances, but I have seen so many people practice this work life integration where their kids come to work with them. Or
Mm.
when, a CEO that I work with, he only works 4 days a week. And on that other day, he still has his meetings with the kids in the background and he asks his kids to take notes and
Interesting.
to draw pictures of what they hear in the meeting, right? And that is him
Mm.
practicing that integration. At the end of the day, I believe that no success in life will compensate for failure in the home.
Mm.
However, I think that there is this misconcept, if you will, that one can have it all without having to pay the price for anything. And I think that it comes a lot from this entitlement mindset of
Right.
I can get everything that I want. I can have my cake and eat it too. And if you're a diabetic, you better not to, right? Uh, which goes really back to my philosophy, Amanda, for everything. I'm 45 years old and I am in the best physical shape of my life. I have a
Mm.
metabolic age of 18 years old. But
Wow.
why? Because I understand the price that needs to be paid for the
Hmm.
results I want. So I know what
Right.
I want, but more importantly, I know why I want that. And when
Yes.
you have a compelling why, you pay the price of discipline. So try to find opportunities to practice work life integration.
Mm. I love that. Thanks for allowing me to ask that question.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Well, Richelle, thank you so much for just the wealth of knowledge that you've shared today. I do want to give you the opportunity for our listeners, if they're interested in reaching out to you and learning a little bit more, what is the best place for them to do that?
Facebook and personal profile, because I've learned that in our industry, everybody has a LinkedIn page, but they have somebody else managing that, but everybody's active
Yes.
on Facebook. I would also encourage people to explore the option of taking my intro to restoration sales and marketing. You can request a free ebook on salesboostersolutions.com, and I'm pretty sure Amanda will put the link here. But that is one training that has made such a big impact on my clients in a short period of time because it's 8 hours. Some people can do it in one day.
Hmm.
But you start learning the basics of how to turn their team into, and their company as a whole, into a sales driven organization that's really making, helping a lot of people taking
Mm.
their business from where it is to where they want it to go. So yeah, sales book, Ricelli, Mordecai, and Sales Booster Solutions. You'll find me over there.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I know I'll be checking that out. I'm very inspired by what you've shared today. And personally, I love watching other women in this industry get to be at levels of training and the influence that you are obviously in today. And so I appreciate you sharing that wisdom with me and
Absolutely.
taking the time out of your busy schedule to do that. I look forward to hopefully connecting again professionally soon. And
Absolutely.
I thank you for joining.
Awesome. It was a pleasure.
Wonderful. Thanks, Richelle.